So I'm Brenda Waite, and you're Pat Hillman. Awesome. Hillmer. Hillmer. All right. So how long have you spent? When did you first start working at the library out here?
Well, I would say, I'm trying to think what the year was.
It's all right.
I was there for 30 years as a director. I had been there for 2 or 3 years as a member of the staff, as a reference librarian. I'm trying to think what age I was and what was going on in my life at the time I began to work at the library. I had been familiar with the library for a very long time because I was a library user. And I was a librarian, and I had 2 daughters, and so we used the library a great deal for that reason. And so, this is where it gets difficult because I'm not very good at remembering what date happened. Does anything happen, when did I come to the Tiffin-Seneca Public Library? Actually, I think it was about 77. I graduated in 76 because I was a late graduate. Almost immediately I started working part-time. Well, after I graduated, then I went to the University of Michigan for 2 years and got my library degree, master's degree in information science, and then came back to Tiffin. Although I didn't anticipate that would happen, I was prepared to go anywhere, and my whole family was planning to go anywhere, and anywhere turned out to be Tiffin, which is where we started out. So that's how I came to come back here, and I took a job that I thought was temporary at the time, and it was for a short time. And then the director of the library, Hillmer, very professional, very good librarian, retired, and I was among those who applied for the position, and I was the lucky one who got selected to be the next director of that time. So I'm trying to think. I don't look like a fool and not know what time, what year it was I started.
Nah, that's all right. Did you stay at Carnegie Hall?
At the Carnegie Building.
Oh, the Carnegie Building.
Did you start at the Carnegie Building?
Oh, no, the old building over there. Mm-hmm. No, I knew the library because I used it, and my children used it, but I never worked there. And in fact, that library had closed, and this one was built 75. I think it opened in 76. But I was still in school. I was at Heidelberg, and I was doing my senior year. But I worked part-time on Friday afternoons. I was offered this quickly, using the position and give you some experience. And we need somebody to fill a desk, for a while. So I had been in this library, but most of my library experience had been in the old one over there.
Oh, okay. Do you know how many books that the library, when you went over there, started out with or anything?
Well, I wish I'd known this was a question.
No, it's just my curiosity.
I think the collection may have been in the 140,000 range, but I'm really not sure.
Okay.
So,
That's all right.
Whatever was there, was there. And they had done some reading before they moved here, of course. So, but it was a decent sized library at the time.
Nice. So, you'd already talked about that. What was your favorite job at the library? What did you love to do there?
Well, it became being the director, because that was where, you really felt you had some influence. And I enjoyed that. And I enjoyed meeting people. And I knew a lot of them anyway, because I had been in Tiffin for quite a while. And so a lot of the clientele at the library I knew already. But meeting people is always something I enjoyed doing, and it was great. to be doing it at the library as well. I had not worked in a library until this one, so my previous work experience had been quite different from being here and being in a library.
Okay.
And, that may have flavored some of the things that I decided would be important to do.
That's awesome. And the least favorite job?
Or least favorite job?
Yep.
Lord, I don't know. Maybe. Well, I didn't care. I mean, I didn't mind it when we stayed late on, every night of the week, Monday through Friday, and so that just meant working to 9 or 9:30. But that didn't mean that I didn't like doing it. In terms of things that you do in libraries, there are some very routine things that have to be done and repeated and so on. And I think those are the things that I found less engaging and certainly less entertaining. But most of what I was doing seemed interesting and fun to me. What I liked most was doing research for people who came in to find information. And in those days there were no computers here. So it was go straight to the books. And so that's what reference librarians were trained to do. And that was fun to have that experience.
What kind of new things did you learn when people came in to learn more about and research about? Or some of the interesting things you thought?
Well, there was a variety of people, of course. And the questions stretched from homework questions, questions about general knowledge things. What's the biggest bear in the world? That was the kind of question you get from a pub at night very often. People would call up and say, "What's the biggest bear?" And so I would look that up for them. And so the questions were really all kinds, all over the map, really. Some of them were science questions, some of them were history, some of them were just general knowledge. And people needed to learn how to use the library so they could answer their own questions. And a lot of the interesting things that came up were genealogy questions. We had a genealogy area, and it was popular, but it was just beginning to grow when I was first here. And so that was fun, to help people find information. If they had ancestors in Seneca County, we could probably look them up and see what they had been doing, where they were, how they lived and died, that kind of thing was always interesting to me.
That's cool. Did you know that's what this project is aiming for? We're aiming to get your history to put up onto internet and things like that for you?
No, I didn't know anything about what this project was about.
Yep.
Until a short time ago. So
Yeah.
you can tell me anything and I will believe it.
That's what the project is. So how did you feel about the animation when that started coming around? Automation.
Well, we knew it was coming, and we knew we had to learn to go with it, because if you didn't, and some people in some libraries didn't, they felt we've always been giving good service, we've been doing it the old-fashioned way, and we could go on doing that. But it became very obvious fairly quickly that that wasn't going to be enough, that people wanted more. And so librarians took advantage of everything that was possible for them to have and to use to get more information available to the public. I mean, our whole business is providing information to the public. And so I think every good librarian welcomed that. And it was interesting to find out things that you didn't know, to whoever was standing in front of you asking about whatever. And the topic could have been anything at all, from their own ancestors to scientific questions, mathematical questions. I had known very little about mathematics, but luckily there are some very fine books that help. use most things.
Yeah.
And so a librarian is expected to be able to handle any question that comes in some useful way. So that's what we try to do. And if you have a good reference staff, which means that you have 3 or 4 other librarians in a library this size, they will be doing the same thing. It's their job to do that. So I happened to work at the library on certain evenings or certain time slots as part of what I was doing when I was not in the director's office doing directorish things. So that was fun, and it was nice to see people and meet new people and find that we were able to help people who didn't know much about libraries, or they thought maybe they could find something out about their ancestor if they came to the library. And very often, especially if they had Seneca County roots or Ohio roots, we could help them in that way. And that was interesting and fun.
Awesome. Did you feel sad when the card catalog was disbanded?
Did I feel bad?
Yeah. How did you feel?
Well, it was coming. I mean, I think, some places tried to hang on as long as they could. And we all were proud of our card catalogs. And keeping them up and keeping them current was an important part of what librarians had to do. And I was one of those. But it became obvious that you just have to move with the times. And the Times said, we need a better way to store information and to find out information and use it. And that's what pushed us all into doing information hunting. You didn't go always to the card catalog and look for information. You knew there were other ways to find things, and that's what we tried to get to do. And gradually, the library developed its own psyche about that, and it became more and more useful to have some information about automation and how you could find information that was not at hand in the building, which you could find elsewhere.
All right. So why did you become a librarian? What was the...
Well, that's a good question, because I didn't become a librarian. I did not think when I was in high school, I wanted to become a librarian. I really wasn't sure what I wanted to do when I graduated from high school. And so I did a bit of this and a bit of that. I taught speech, I taught ballet, I took a job as a secretary. And that was for me a very useful thing, because you could take a secretary's job all over the world, and I did. And that was useful for me, and it was fun. And it always came in useful to have done that. And then I think the library just sort of, it was here, I use it all the time. The director at the time asked if I would be interested in filling in some time as a reference librarian, which I was not prepared for. I wasn't trained in any way. But I said, sure. So that's how I started out. And the more I was there, the more I thought, this would be fun. I'd like to do this in a serious way. And so that was the beginning of that. So I had my bachelor's from Heidelberg, and some time in the library, the old library over there. And then from there I decided if I'm going to do this, I better do it right. So I applied for and was accepted at the University of Michigan, and that's where I got my library degree, my master's degree in library information science.
So I hear you spent some time in Australia?
Yes.
What did you do over there?
I was a governess on a sheep station.
Oh, wow.
And that was interesting and fun. I learned some things about sheep and about the great wide open expanses of Australia
Yeah.
and about Australians, especially those who lived out in those expanses. And so that was always a useful thing. And I still keep those contacts as much as I can.
That's awesome. Do you have any childhood stories you'd like to share with us? Like any stories from your childhood? Oh, and England. And England.
Well, I was born in England,
Oh, wow.
in the county of Gloucestershire, and in a small town called Cirencester, which is a Roman town originally. And I grew up there, went to high school there. After high school, I got a speech degree so that I could teach speech, which I did. So I did that as a sort of a part-time thing I was doing. And that was good. It was good all the way through for me to do that. And I lived at home in those days, and I joined the local amateur theatrical society and acted with them and did all the things that you do if you're a 20 or 18-year-old girl living at home and looking around for what she's going to do next, thinking about that. And I met a young man when I was there who was Australian, and so that's how I came to go to Australia. A couple of years after he had graduated from the college he was at in England, which was the Royal Agricultural College. And later, he said, why don't you come out here and see what we think we might do? In other words, you might marry me, which was the general idea. And I thought, well, that would be very interesting. So that's what I did. I sailed to Australia, and I was there for 2 years. And I had a great time, really enjoyed it. And didn't think about being a librarian at all. But it was a fascinating time for me. And I've always been glad that I've had it. As I said, I've made wonderful friends there, and I still have them. So that's been good, even all these years later.
How long did it take you to get to Australia?
To get.
How long did it take you to sail to Australia from?
Oh, well, it was a long time because I took a boat, the liner, and I left London, I don't know, it was the afternoon of some August day, and I got to Australia 6 weeks later.
Oh, wow.
It was that long trip in those days. It was interesting because we went to Marseille, we went to Bombay, we went to southern India and to the cities down there, and then eventually ended up in Australia. So I had a lot of fun experience doing that. And that was something somebody young does. I don't even know if you can still do that.
I don't know.
Because, I don't know. I suppose you can.
You
But
probably
in
could.
those days, taking a liner, was a good thing to do. And of course, it was a 5 or 6 week journey. Everybody there. I shared a cabin with 5 other women when I went out to Australia, and that was something of a riot. Yes, but it was fun, and it was good for me. And all these things are mind broadening, and so I think that's been a useful thing to do. I've always encouraged any child of mine, and I have, to travel when you can. Because I used to know people, young women who would say, oh, that would be lovely, but I'm going to wait until I'm married and then I'll go with my husband. And there was no husband in sight at the time. And I said, you'd better go now, because you might not get that opportunity. And of course that's what happens. You meet somebody, you decide to marry them, and you do, and nobody says, why don't we go to Australia? You just have to, you make your life as it turns out for you. But I think it's good for young people to think about traveling if they can. And it's much easier now than it was when I did. You can do experiences abroad, that kind of thing. And, so I went as a 16-year-old to France on my own and lived the summer with a French family.
Oh, wow.
And that was a great experience for me too. So that's the kind of thing that I would encourage everybody to do. And my daughters as well. They didn't both do it, but one of them spent a lot of time in Australia herself.
Yeah.
So I'm all for travel. I think it's very good. And it was certainly useful for me as a librarian. People tend to think of librarians as being meek and mild and just sitting in a library and checking out books. But it's not like that. There's a great deal more to librarianship than that. And there's so much to learn when you're in a library and you know how materials come and where they go and what you're going to do with them when you get them in the library and how you can, quote, sell them to the public so they realize what you have. So that's my little push on behalf of libraries.
Awesome. I heard you do ballet too?
Yes. I used to. Alas, I don't do any dancing right now.
That's all right.
I taught lower level grade Russian ballet. Yes, I had a very good in England, a very good teacher who was from Russia. And so that was a very important part of my life at one stage, to be doing the ballet as well.
Awesome.
So that was lucky for me.
Awesome. So as we come to our close with our little interview here, what are some of your childhood memories you've had out here, or what brought you from Australia to America? How did you get here?
Well, actually, I got here because my mother had cousins who lived in Seattle. And when I said I was leaving Australia, I was going to go home to England, by sea again, as I'd gone out that way, they popped up and said, why don't you come this way? Because this is another way to go home to England instead of the way you went out. And I thought that would be fun. So I decided to do that. And that's how I got to America, because I took a boat and went to, I landed in San Francisco, I guess. And then my cousins who lived in Seattle met me, and eventually I decided that I would stay for a while, and I lived with their sisters, and I won't go into all that story. It was fun. And I got a job at the University of Washington as a secretary, and had a very cheerful and happy year when I was there. And at the same time, that was where I met my husband. He was at the University of Washington doing a PhD program for the School of Nursing. He had a fairly new PhD himself. And anyway, that's where he was and that's where I was. He was the only man in the whole school. And fortunately for me, he had an office around the corner from mine. And my boss was frequently away on important meetings. And so he would just turn around and stop in and we'd talk, and things started from there.
Nice.
So that's how I came to be here. And of course, since then, we traveled to wherever he was going to go to for work.
Sounds like a great story.
I have worked and taught for 12 years.
Wow.
So that was my brief story.
It's a great story. I like it.
Well, I'd like people to think that being a librarian is not boring.
No.
There's a lot of excitement and fun in this career. You don't think of it that way, but there's a great deal, and there are some very neat librarians, a lot of whom are my friends now, and I've had a good time being a librarian. I wouldn't have wanted to do anything else, but I would have had as much fun, I think, in that job.
Awesome.
So,
Awesome.
let's hear it for libraries.
Well, thank you for talking to us.
Well, I'm very happy to talk to you.
Yeah, thank you.